Hello and welcome back to another edition of me reading through the Rick Riordan pantheon, canon, whatever. I read Percy Jackson for the first time in the summer of 2020. Loved it, had a great time. And now we're here to do the Kane Chronicles. I'm hoping to also be able to read these all in the next week. You did also happen to catch me wearing an Emma Tobias special. Emma has been releasing sweaters to donate to climate organizations. I love it. They are very cozy. They're perfect. Been wearing too much, okay? It's covered in many various pet hairs. It's already like 4 p.m. I did read a little bit this morning when I was eating breakfast. I have some other administrative things I need to take care of today, but I will be having a bath later tonight, okay? So reading will be happening. All right, how do we feel about backlighting? I'm here in my cozy, gorgeous little breakfast nook, having a very decadent breakfast moment. I didn't read a whole bunch yesterday. I absolutely need to pick up the pace if this is gonna happen in a week. In this series, we follow Carter and Sadie Kane, who are brothers and sisters, but they have grown up apart since the death of their mother. So Sadie lives with her mother's parents in London, and Carter travels the world with his father, Julius Kane, who is an Egyptologist, until they link up in London for the allotted 2 days that they get to hang out as a family. And their dad goes to the British Museum and just like opens a portal and releases 5 Egyptian gods in an attempt to get their mother back from the dead. You know, not to be gross, but Julius Kane is kind of a hot name. Honestly, their dad sounds kind of hot. And this is a very unintended, unforeseen consequence of being a full adult person reading middle grade. Sadie and Carter have a black father and a white mother. So that's a shift in terms of Percy Jackson, in terms of having main characters who are biracial in this case. So far, even within like the first 50 pages even, there was a lot of discussion about how Sadie is much more light-skinned than Carter is from both of their perspectives, how that impacts the family in terms of people not thinking that she's related to her brother and her dad. And then also in terms of discussions that Carter had with his father around needing to look very respectable, presentable, always look his best in terms of dressing in order to be taken seriously because he's black. You may recall at the end of the Percy Jackson vlog, I was like, if there are no black people in this book, I'm gonna lose it because hi, hello, the actual history of ancient Egypt. Obviously, I cannot say if that is a good representation, but I see it, okay? It's there and it's happening. I am also very much enjoying Sadie's London accent, okay? It's very much Basher in Ocean's 11.
Oh, leave it out.
Big Don Cheadle energy. It is the morning, but it is very dark and foggy out today, very atmospheric. Yesterday, with the help of some snacks, as well as trying out reading to ambiance music for the first time, I made a decent effort in the first book in the series, which is called The Red Pyramid. I don't know if I actually ever mentioned that. And now that we're like into it more, explaining a lot more things, I really like the magicians, how they work with the gods, how this works with history and like artifacts that are currently all over the world. I loved Bast. I was a huge fan of Bast as a child, one of the ones I remember vividly, and her being a literal actual cat. Very fun. Love that the end of the world is beginning in Phoenix, Arizona. Yogi. Is that your give me food face? The mesmerizing. Wow. First, we need to talk about how witchy this outfit turned out. I used to not like this dress because I felt like it made me look like a depressed art teacher, but then I just added a lot of gemstones and here we are. This book is told in the dual perspectives of both Carter and Sadie, so they each get 2 chapters before it switches over. Start off knowing that they've ended up in a bad situation, and so they are recording their adventures before posterity, I guess. Very much a like record scratch. How did we get up in this situation, which as a plot device, I have no issues with. However, when they switch off, there's always this little like interaction. It's getting a little bit repetitive. That's my only real qualm so far though. I'm gonna keep reading, but shortly, Emma and I are gonna watch our inaugural Hallmark holiday film, okay? The season has begun. Here we go. I woke up early this morning to finish reading The Red Pyramid because last night I snacked a little too close to the sun and wasn't feeling great. I enjoyed it so much. Did I cry at the end? Maybe a little bit. That's neither here nor there. I forgot how good Rick Riordan is writing about like parents and like family stuff. Ugh. Also look at him, just looking like your dad / academic uncle that you see sometimes. In terms of talking about blackness in the book, given the identity of the main characters, we had some discussion of how Elvis popularized Black American music, a nice way of putting it, as well as talking a little bit about the way that Carter is treated with deep suspicion by the police. Rick Riordan didn't say ACAB, but like he was on track. Like Carter, I also have a crush on Zia, a powerful and mysterious like magician / witch woman with amber eyes and a tragic past. Hello. I also thoroughly enjoy Sadie being a 12-year-old and she's already absolutely fucking had it with men. I'm gonna get into the second book in the trilogy, The Throne of Fire. We're gonna address the sweater. Hang on, we have to do this again. Welcome to my favorite small outfit. Not to bring up the franchise that shall not be named, but do I not look like an estranged Weasley? After a cozy little reading moment this morning with Misty, I'm now halfway through The Throne of Fire, and I have thoughts. First and foremost, Sadie Kane is a badass bitch, okay? This little 13-year-old girl out here in her combat boots, got 2 boys on the go, okay? One of which being an ancient Egyptian god. And then one of them kisses her on her birthday, kind of without warning. And she's like, excuse me, how dare this man that I'm in love with kiss me without my permission? What a queen. The switching off between them is a little more subtle now. I am enjoying Sadie's narration much more in this book than I was in the last one. In the last one, I much preferred Carter's, and Sadie was just kind of there. In this one, I feel like it's the reverse. Sadie is very much main character energy. Just a king amongst men. I'm in a onesie. It's not important. Last night I finished The Throne of Fire. I did really like it as well, but I do have some slight quibbles I'd like to address. There is a few kind of body shaming moments. We would think that that would maybe grow out of his writing in the future, because I've been told only good things about the way that his writing kind of responds to criticism and evolves. It's interesting because a lot of it has to do with specifically how he's representing some of the more like minor gods. I understand that he's trying to embody like what two modern day young people would think and like is working off of source material. There was a few other things though, like when Sadie and Walt, okay, one of her little boyfriends, are in Egypt as part of their quest for this book. There's a part where they're like on public transportation and she's like complaining how none of the men have discovered deodorant and how like the bus driver is like eating a raw onion. That was not ever discussed when talking about using the tube in London, and I don't think that would be discussed talking about using buses in America or anything like that. That was a little bit a more heartfelt, I guess, quibble that I'm having with the series is that I wish there was more time spent at like the magic school situation. I remember talking about this in the Percy Jackson series and wishing that they'd spend more time like at Camp Half-Blood, but in this one they're spending even less time at their version of that, which is the Gnomes, N-O-M-E-S, which is kind of like hubs of magicians in different cities across the world. We get a little bit of it at the beginning, but like it sounds so cool. and I want to know more, especially because there are a lot of things about the gnomes that I like better but than Camp Half-Blood. The demigods have like the blood of the pharaohs, so they're part of like an ancestral lineage linked to pharaohs, but they're not related to the gods, and thus they get to choose their own path of like magic, and then therefore the kind of patron god of that kind of magic that they want to follow and are naturally good at. And at their gnome, it's like very like self-directed, so they're all just like grabbing the scrolls and like studying in the library and then going to like a combat magic class. Like, oh, I love it. So today I'm gonna start the Serpent Shadow, and I'm kind of sad that it's ending, especially because this book is so short. Once again, I have been personally victimized by daylight savings. When will the tyranny end? But despite that, I did manage to finish. Overall, really enjoyed this one. Thought it was a really good like final installment in the trilogy. The narration was definitely more balanced between Carter and Sadie, yet Sadie still reigns as the queen. I am sad that it's over. I had moments near the end of the book where I was like, oh, I actually like am genuinely interested in knowing what their futures would be like. But there's enough hints that there's gonna be some type of crossover, because they're like, there's some weird shit going on in Manhattan that we try to avoid. We don't really know what that is, so we'll see. There was some off language in this one as well. Most notably when Sadie describes her brother's hair as being nappy, not intended to be offensive, but like definitely is. We also got to spend a lot more time at the Brooklyn house, okay, in their gnome, so that I was very satisfied that I got that. In particular, I loved Cleo, the little self-appointed librarian at the Brooklyn house, and also she definitely has a thing with jazz. That's that's there, and it's gay, and I sensed it. The biggest thing that happened in this book for me though is that for both Carter and Sadie, at some point their little girlfriend slash boyfriends become hosted by gods in very particular ways. In the case of Carter, Zia, who's also my girlfriend, is temporarily host the god Ra, like the god, okay, because they had to like reawaken him to deal with the big chaos snake, which means there's a point where she essentially becomes like an older gentleman who's like very buff. Carter has to deal with the fact that his person he wants to be his girlfriend is like a really like jacked grandpa, and like that was so fun for me. And then in Sadie's case, we had a more permanent joining of her godly boyfriend and her mortal boyfriend. Obviously there's like a reason for this, but they like are both like broing out over the fact that they both really like Sadie and that now they can be as one and like both be with her always. Truly a nightmare situation. But then it's like, well, you know, I guess the best of both worlds. The best of both worlds. It's so fucking wild. Like, she's literally 13. Like, is this polyamory? I don't know. Anyway, eventually we land on the fact that they've become one new person that's the same but different and new. So we've completed the Kane Chronicles. I don't think I mentioned this, but I actually really enjoy the cover art for these ones. I think that this series deserves so much more hype than it does within the Rick Riordan universe. It has everything that is so good about his writing, including the very like fun, slightly absurd like representation of the gods, and then translating to what that would look like in our context, but then also talking about importance of like friends and family and having to grow up too fast because of like really intense circumstances, and the absolute life and death nature of having crushes on people when you're 14. I've already talked quite a bit about some little quibbles, but there is obviously like broader themes and messaging that are coming through in these books that I think are interesting. So firstly, I was actually quite surprised that there was no discussion or even mention of the kind of colonial nature of Egyptology, the fact that the reason that they're able to travel around the world is because they travel through their connection to different like artifacts. The reason there are artifacts all over the world is because they've been stolen from Egypt. He's able to have these kind of more intensive discussions in his books, like in Percy Jackson, when he's talking about ancient Greece, and the reason that it's now residing in Manhattan is the idea that essentially the ancient Greek civilization as the declared center of Western civilization, moved to wherever power was, therefore wherever empire was. Also looking at like the dark side of Western civilization and progress, particularly in how it meets with climate change. I wasn't expecting him to have a full Michael Jordan and Black Panther moment, but like there's precedent for having some kind of discussion about that in the writing. In terms of the civilization discourse within this series, it seemed to be more about the fact that ancient Egypt is really like the blueprint for civilization. So in the fact that it keeps being echoed in terms of like structures throughout the world, which is why we have these modern artifacts, as he was calling them in the book. Overall, I enjoyed this so much. I love doing these little reading vlog experiences because they remind me so much of being a kid, not just because of like the content of the writing, but also because like this is what I used to do with my time, like exclusively, like just a chance to really like dig in and be immersed. Next, I'm gonna be reading The Heroes of Olympus next month in December, so that's exciting and fun. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye!